Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. It's so good to have you with us today. If you're just joining us, we're about to talk about a article. It was a real interesting one that was written, as sort of an opinion piece by a gentleman who's a president and CEO of a property management company. It's entitled "Deal with Problems Early On," but dealing with that strong personality on the board. And we've all dealt with that, haven't we?
That's right. That's right.
A little bit later in the show, we're going to be talking to a homeowner in a luxury condo high-rise. And I think everybody feels that they have problems in their homeowner associations and deal with difficult people. But, oh, Nelly, this group, there are some folks that are quite passionate about their ideas.
Extreme example.
Yeah, and we're going to have someone from that association who's going to join us by phone. And then a little bit later, too, people are upset in Maryland because the developer entered into a contract, a couple-year contract, obligating the association to something they think they're paying too much for, and they don't like it. And we're going to talk about, does that happen a lot? Are there things that we can do? We're going to be talking with a regular on the show, attorney Nancy Palomas from Helmuth & Johnson, on that as well. Before we get into this next article, though, I'd like to also remind our listeners about a free offer that we have. It's a bi-monthly newsletter called What's New, and it's a great resource. Over 18,000 folks think so, and it can be yours, too, for the asking. Give us a call during the week at New Concepts at 952-922-2500. Ask for Courtney. She'll make sure that you start getting your free subscription. And a lot of the things that we cover are covered in further detail. People that we've had on the show are writers and presenters in that newsletter, too. It's a great resource to have. Well, let's, Tony, talk about this. And this is from Grant Parker, who's president and CEO of Lewis Management Resources in Tucson, Arizona. And this was published in the Green Valley Sun News a couple weeks ago in October. And he begins by saying, why do smart, well-meaning directors serving on HOA and condo boards sometimes make bad decisions? In 2007, one of the largest high-end retirement communities in southern Arizona had an election. A well-heeled resident who regularly boasted about his status as a previously an important person with a Fortune 100 company ran for the board on the platform that the community is going to hell. And he was successful in convincing his neighbors that the association was wasting money, and the reason, incompetent management. Now, for the previous 7 years, Mr. Parker said this community had enjoyed unparalleled prosperity. He would have you point out that they had transitioned from the developer control and passed sweeping and necessary amendments to their governing documents. They completed a $3.5 million renovation of their clubhouse and restaurant facility. Their bank account was flush. They had an operating surplus 5 of the last fiscal years. Not bad for a homeowners association. One of the more unfortunate aspects of human nature, Mr. Parker says, is that we respond to fear and fearful rhetoric. It has always been a very powerful motivator. And it's not unusual for an ex-captain of industry like this person in this story to have learned that lesson along the way. It says that he knew that it was easy to bully fearful people, even though a majority of the sitting directors did not agree with this man's views. They did little to block his path. On a 7-member board, 3 incumbents who were up for re-election did not agree with this man's views, but instead of challenging his views, they chose not to spar with him, and they declined to run in a re-election. This is really common, isn't it,
It's
Tony?
very common. It's very common. A board of directors is a volunteer group, and people spend their own personal time going to meetings, making decisions, and often working outside of the meetings, too, to get things done. It's going to be a mixture of people, and a lot of people are kind of putting in their time but not really making any decisions. They're afraid to make a decision. So if you get a strong personality on that board, they're happy to just kind of ride along on the wake of that person and not do anything to rock the boat.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. You see these dynamics time and time again. What happens is you have some people who, some of these incumbents were probably what I would call a reluctant board member.
Yeah,
They probably didn't really want to serve,
Yeah.
but they knew that it was important to have good representation.
Somebody had to serve on the board.
And so they were willing to do that. I like people like that because, number one, they don't have just a particular axe to grind. And number two, I think they probably tend to be a little bit more even-handed, I think. Because
You think so?
they don't come in with any preconceived notions. And this guy certainly had that. I mean, he said...
he had preconceived notions.
Yeah, he said the HOA is going to hell in a handbasket, and it's all management.
That's right. Money was wasted,
Money was wasted.
and it's,
and
all falling apart.
And claims are being made, but not necessarily any specifics to back that up.
Right.
But what you end up having in a situation like this, because most people, we deal with this when they say, well, most people don't care. Well, when people say that most people don't care, I think what they're really looking at is a case of the association saying, we're pretty happy with the way things are going.
Yes.
Don't you agree?
I do agree. If you're not hearing a lot from your homeowners, if you're not having a lot of people show up at your annual meeting, probably
you're meeting
most members are happy. You're meeting their expectations. They don't have any gripes.
Yes, and I think that's true. And then you have the passion of an individual who comes and says things need to change. Some people look at that and say, "Oh, isn't that nice? Here's someone who's got a lot of energy
and who really cares."
And yes, that translates into they really care. I don't think that's necessarily true, though.
No.
Just because a person is louder in their rhetoric does not mean that they care any more or any less than anybody else.
Yeah.
It's just that they're demonstrating it.
It's a personality style. Yep.
Yes. And but that dynamic takes place all the time. Let's deal with the issue of this guy saying, the problem, he was convinced, was management.
Right.
It says here a little bit later in the story that one of the biggest things that he wanted to focus on was the community manager. I think this association was self-managed, and they didn't necessarily hire a property management firm, but had hired individuals to be employees for
Well, it
this
sounds like they had a
association.
site manager that
Yes.
was devoted just to their community. That's
and
right.
so this community manager was well-liked and had been around for since the inception.
25 years of experience.
Yeah. The new president was looking forward to going toe-to-toe with this employee. And so in his lament was, it's all management's fault. Now, of course, being a management firm and being a part of management, I will say that, yes, there are things, and at times, that are indeed a manager's responsibility. And it is their fault. But there's so many other things that are a part of that dynamics. And that's just 1/3 of the issue. The manager may or may not be doing their work. That's fine. It may not be the manager. Could it be maybe, in this case, the association board not giving the support and resources that the manager needs to be able to do their job correctly,
or just not making the right decisions. He says he's accusing the manager of being the one that's wasting money, and the manager really doesn't have the power to spend the association's money. The board of directors has to make decisions on how the money is spent, but he's targeting. This is I remember as a kid at the church council and the church we went to, they elected people to represent them on the council, and my mom laughing about a joke that the way a church board of directors deals with problems is to fire the janitor. It didn't matter what the problem was, didn't matter what the cause was or what the outcome was. The solution was always, hey, it boiled down to let's fire the janitor. And that's what I think of whenever I hear of an association blaming all of their problems on their manager.
In baseball, it's the same thing. If things aren't going well and the team is having a terrible year, you never blame the owner for not putting enough money in the organization. No. You never blame the players who are the stars.
You
blame
talent.
Management.
That's right.
And you always kick out and get a new manager as if that's going to be the issue.
That's going to answer all of your troubles.
Now, if that is the issue, that could change it.
Oh, sure. If your manager isn't following your direction, if your manager isn't communicating well with the board or with the members, if your manager is not reporting promptly, if they're not, you know what I mean? There's lots of behaviors and lots of tasks the manager should be carrying out for you, but to blame the manager for your decisions or your non-decisions is not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, but to not recognize that it could be there may not be a proper support system for the person to do their job, or to not understand that it could be unrealistic expectations that people have. Those things also weigh in, and if you don't look at that, you're not going to be looking at the problem as a whole.
Right.
Well, we need to take a break right now. We want to return and talk about this more. And we want to answer the question: how do you handle a problem with the self-directed individual on the board who's that strong personality? What do you do? How do you help guide this association? We've got some answers we'd like to suggest after these messages.